Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the United Service Institution Strategic Dialogue, your one-stop shop for national defense and geopolitics. Today we have with us Air Marshal Dr. Rajeev Sachdeva, EVSM PhD, who will be talking on the tenets of India's air warfare philosophy. Air Marshal Sachdeva's last appointment was of Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, where he officiated as the Additional Secretary Air at the Department of Military Affairs. His other appointments include that of Commandant of College of Defense Management, Command of an AN-32 Squadron, Chief Instructor at the Fixed Wing Training Faculty, Command of an Operational Transport Base and Senior Air Staff Officer at the Headquarters Southern Air Command. He has been associated with the Union War Book and the Raksha Mantri's Operations Director, and was the Member Secretary at the Defense Acquisition Council. He was further awarded the Ati Vishesh Seva Medal in 2016 and was also awarded the Chief of Air Staff Commendation in the year 2000. Presently, he is serving as a council member at the USI. So without further ado, let's get to it.
Thank you, Vinayak, for getting me over for this talk. And IAF has spent 91 years. It's in its 92nd year now. I don't think in the next 15 minutes I'll be able to give you the full tenets about the Indian Air Force, but we will make an attempt so that we do not miss out the important things. We will go ahead with that. Thank you very much for calling me over.
Absolutely, sir. So for the first question to you, what is the national security process?
Let's go into a national security process. You know, India has 58 ministries and 93 departments. Each department today, whether it's food, water, education, shipping, energy, eco, terrorism, piracy, terror, everything encompasses the national security. Like you have heard the word about food security, water security, science and technology security, youth affairs, all these 93 departments are looking about security. However, defense is a commonly termed use, or military is commonly termed use for national security. National security is a bigger thing and it's a multi-dimensional process. Now what happens in that is the entire security environment is affected by the state of politics, the economics, legal, the way UN's charters are there. Today the world is talking about green, military and conflicts, mutual interdependencies, because economies are all dependent on each other. Technology is changing the entire environment. Any change happening in this security environment which is so dynamic affects the entire national security. Russia-Ukraine war has affected so many in this world. Xi Jinping, yes, sir. As soon as he came, his theories, his selection of his team affects the world. G20, which happened in India, affects the national security. BRICS, expansion of BRICS affects the national security. Quad is affecting the security. Hamas has done something with Israel is doing affecting the international security. North Korea shooting out missiles here and there affects the national security. So national security is a massive subject and it gets impinged by any activity happening in the world. So to understand this, I will bring out what happens to the national security apparatus. You have four macro level things. One is the national security objective. Every nation has a national security objective. From there, they pull out the national security strategy.
Yes, sir.
Then comes down out of that national security strategy, what will be the national military objective and what will be the national military strategy. And to understand this, you have to understand every nation with its neighbor or another nation is either in a state of peace or in a state of war, the way it is happening with Ukraine and Russia, or it's a no war, no peace. We don't have war with China today. We are not at war with Pakistan, but there is no peace.
So we are somewhere in between.
This is the most difficult proposition for a country, that you're neither in peace with somebody nor at war. So this we have to understand. How does a nation go about looking into its strategy? They have four phases. First phase is an establishment of strategic intent. Do we have a national vision? Do we have national aims? If we have national aim, then we'll definitely write down national missions to achieve that aim. Like these days you hear that by 2047 India will be a Viksit Bharat, a developed nation. That means you have a national aim. For next 23 years you're going to go towards that national aim. Now you write down the security interest. Okay, if I have to achieve that aim, I will have to keep my activities and my nation secure to reach there. Finally, you will write down your national security objectives.
Yes, sir.
Once you've done that, you will formulate your strategy to achieve this strategic vision, objective. For that, you'll do an environment scan. You will study the entire world, what is happening in this scan. And you will study the world, you will study the environment, which I've just spoken about, in next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, for us 25 years, even 50 years. So you will study do the environment scan. Now formulate your strategy for every scenario which is going to happen in these 5, 10, 15 years. Then you will analyze your strategies. Once you analyze your strategies, you will get a few choices. Okay, strategy 1, strategy 2, strategy 3 for this scenario. You will pick up your strategy, you will choose your strategy and then make your plan to achieve that strategy. So this is the whole macro level process which a nation goes through, and India also does all this.
So, sir, I take it you're advocating for the creation of a white paper?
Okay, we've spoken about a very nice thing, white paper. So many good countries have white paper. China has a white paper. They keep revising a white paper. For us to put 93 departments of 58 ministries on a white paper is a very complex thing. So that is why what you're saying is absolutely, why don't we have a white paper for this country?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we have a government which is stable for 10 years and maybe it will stretch to 15 years the way it is going. We should have had a white paper. But it is so difficult, the dynamism is so much that a white paper which says, okay, for next 10 years we'll do this, might not unfold like that. I have a document with me which I picked up in UK in 2008, which says World in 2045. Today when I read that book, everything is changed.
Yes, sir.
So World in 2045, and the whole world is actually changed the way they thought. By then, even the Brexit had not happened. And that book doesn't talk about Brexit. That yes, it says if it happens, what will we do? If it doesn't happen, what will we do? So it's very difficult to produce a white paper. But yes, India has a white paper in the form of, as far as the military is concerned, there is a process in India with which what happens is that there is a union war book. The nation has decided, this is held by the cabinet secretary, union war book, where he is actually spelling out how each ministry, each department will function during war. From that union war book, each ministry makes its own war book.
Yes.
And from there comes out the MOD war book. Now, MOD war book is held by the defense secretary. However, the military gets an RM's op directive, Raksha Mantri's operational directive, which is given to the military. That is the white paper for the military on which the military is supposed to work. This document is supposed to have 3 aspects. What's the threat?
Yes.
How do we counter this threat, and what is the military supposed to do? Simple. Every nation has it. It is not an open source document, because
That's
what
right.
the military is supposed to do, first of all, what are the threats which you envisage? Okay, it could be in an open source. How are you going to counter those threats, and what is the action the military is supposed to take becomes a confidential part of this. So we can say that the military does get a white paper sort of a thing. You may call it anything, but we call it Raksha Mantri's operational directive.
Yes, sir. What are the revolution to military affairs initiatives introduced by the government of India?
One has to understand that Indian military is 14,55,550 active soldiers. We have 11,55,000 reserves. Our annual budget is almost 1.5% of the GDP, and we take away a good about 13 to 14% of the every year's budget. And it goes to about $70 billion, like you've seen this time. We build aircraft carriers, we build ships, we build our own aircraft, we build best of the missiles, we build largest networks, we build our own tanks, and we consume them all. We are the largest enterprise of India. Nobody else has got so much of manpower as what we have. And you'll be surprised that we consume almost one Mukesh Ambani's worth every year. It just vanishes with us. That's the... Now when you're spending that kind of money, the government needs to know what you're doing with this money. They question this country. What are you going to do with this money? Are you that cost effective? Today the word cost effective is there. When you spend money, you want to know. That's why the ladies bargain when they go out to the market.
Yes, sir.
But because they want to be more cost effective, value for money. So much of money is being spent on you. Are you actually value for money? Are you cost effective? When Kargil happened, Okay, we did fight and we did push the Pakistanis back home. But how did they come inside? First of all, how could they make the bunkers inside? Then war happened, we lost so many good soldiers, we lost so many of our people. We actually destroyed the other side nice and proper, sent them back. Why did this happen? A committee sat down immediately after the Kargil war was over and they said, let's find out what are the mistakes which we are doing.
The Kargil
War Review Committee. What they found out, that yes, the Pakistanis had moved in was known to India and was not known to Indians. It was neither known to Indians nor war and was known to India. Because it was known to you, you had nothing to do with it. It was not known to me, but it was something to do with me. So where is the connect between you and me? This is what was the macro level issue which came out from the Kargil Review Committee. Now I'll read out what they found. He said India is the only major democracy where armed forces is outside the apex government structure. There is a government structure, but armed forces is outside that structure. I'm just reading out what the Kargil Review Committee is. Chiefs of the staff are operational commanders and they are not chiefs of staff to the PM and RM. PM and RM in 1999 do not meet the chief. They don't listen. They don't have a connect with the chiefs. So these are the fault lines they found about the Indian military system. That's why the RMA thing is I'm coming to. Armed Forces Headquarters had developed a command. They were actually running the show instead of being a decision-making body only. They were taking all the decisions, but they were also dictating how the war will happen because they were not connected with the government. PM and RM had no benefit, views and expertise from the armed forces. They did not have a linkage direct to that individual who's sitting there from the military. And then there was resistance to change. There's a status quo to be maintained. Civilian will remain like this and so on. And locating headquarters under the defense secretary and not under the military. There's a lot of confusion which they found that this was the only military which was so confused. So what happened? On 15th of August 2019, the first speech from the Red Fort, which the Prime Minister made after coming back, he said a few things. In short, I will come out. He said military reforms are suggested by many reports. 99 Kargil happened and he's talking in 2019, almost 20 years later, that there have been so many reports which have come about military reforms. All reports have brought few issues. Modernity in their own way. Army is getting modern in its own way. Navy is getting modern in its own way. Air Force is getting modern in its own way. I'm just repeating what the PM had said.
Yes.
India should not have fragmented approach. Okay? Have to work in unison. All three have to get together. One service is ahead of the other two services. I'm repeating PM's words. All should move simultaneously at the same pace. Good coordination is required. And we will now have a Chief of Defence Staff. Yes. So that is the announcement which he made, which will give us an effective leadership. Yes, we have three chiefs. Now we have all three and the CDS working together.
Yes, sir.
It was a compelling task on this government because the rest of the world have a CDS. We didn't have a CDS. They have a CDS kind, but we didn't have a CDS. He said this was a dream which will, of the new Hindustan, which will make changes. So what happened? Now, national level directive, like I said, flows out of the Cabinet Secretary. It's a Union War Book, comes out of the MOD War Book, then goes down to the military as an RMOP directive. Now, Ministry of Defence had 4 macro departments. One was the Department of Defence, which was headed by the Defence Secretary. You had Department of Ex-Servicemen Welfare, which was headed by another secretary. You had Department of Defence Production, headed by one secretary. And you had Department of R&D, which was also the chairman, DRDO.
Yes, sir.
The Department of Defence was split into 2 and they came up with a new department known as Department of Military Affairs. This is the only democratic country where you have a uniform person also secretary to the government of India and taking military decisions. Earlier, the military decisions were being taken by the Civil Defence Secretary. Now his equivalent, a secretary in uniform, is taking the decision. So Department of Defence was cut into 2. You have to understand we have ministries, then you have departments which are run by the secretaries, then you have offices and you have attached offices. That is a sequence.
Yes.
Military were attached offices to the defense secretary. Now you have a separate department altogether. What happened? There is something known as allocation of business rule, which is given to every secretary that this is your business as far as your department is concerned. Now, what was given to the defense secretary was defense of India. Even today, after the DMA, defense of India remains with the defense secretary. Then he was given the armed forces were under the Department of Defense. That's gone. It's gone under the DMA. And headquarters of Army, Navy, Air Force and IDS was under the defense secretary. That's gone.
Yes.
That's gone to DMA. And you had reserve of Army, Navy, Air Force. That's with them. And you had the territorial army, which was under the defense secretary, gone. It's now with the DMA. National Cadet Corps is with him. And all the work services, that means construction of a building, construction of roads, construction of bunkers, construction, was under the defense secretary, has been shifted under the DMA. So now, this is how the division has happened in military affairs. So, along with this, the DMA or the Department of Military Affairs were given three more important allocation of business: promoting jointness in procurement, training and staffing. That means now they're looking for the three services joining together. What PM said on 15th of August in 2019 actually fructified on January 2020 when the CDS was appointed. The second thing was restructuring of military commands. That's an order given to the CDS to restructure the command. You have Army Command, Air Force Command, Naval Command, merge them, make them as a cluster of commands. So that's what the present CDS and his team is working on. I will not be privy to that. And promoting indigenous equipment by the services. That is why the CDS comes out with initially he came out with a negative import list.
Yes.
Now he is coming out with the positive indigenization list. Okay, these items which we've been buying from abroad will not be bought from abroad anymore. They will be made in India. This was another thing which was given to him. So you can understand that the entire package of revolution of military affairs rests on the shoulders of the CDS.
So, Air Marshal, your answer to that question leads me perfectly to my next question. How would joint operation in a theaterized environment unfold? Because from what I understood from the answer to the previous question, you were working around theaterization.
Vinayak, as of now, the theaterization is not in open domain. The CDS along with the three chiefs and the three services are working out how the theatre commands will unfold or what will be the theatre commands, how will they function. But notwithstanding that, my personal views about the theatre command and my personal views how the whole activity will actually happen is what I'll just bring out to you. First of all, once the CCS, that is the Cabinet Committee on Security, decides that we have to go in for an operation, first, the decision in this country is taken by the Cabinet Committee on Security. Once they decide, yes, go into operations, that is when the Raksha Mantri, who is also a member of the CCS, will come and give directives to the Chiefs of Staff Committee. Chiefs of Staff Committee comprises of the CDS and the three chiefs.
Yes.
He will come and tell the four of them, yes, this is what the CCS has decided and you have to go into operations. So basically, I presume that the COSC will have to issue the operational instructions, which will comprise of joint operations appreciation. How will the joint operations happen? What will the commanders estimate of situation? The commanders will know what is the situation, why we are going into war and what is the situation. That is how the CCS is divided.
Yes, sir.
Then define the military strategic objective. Okay, for this particular mission, for this particular operation, this is the objective, which could be protect the land, somebody's moved in. It could be maritime borders, something going wrong on the maritimes, EZ, SLOCs, or go offensive, whichever way, whatever the CCS has decided will be given in these op instructions. And the center of gravity of this war.
Yes, sir.
That you're going in, what will be the center of gravity? And finally, what will be the notion of victory? All this, I think the four of them will have to sit together and tell the armed forces, this is what you got to do. From there, it will go to the theatre commander. Now, if at all, the theory which I hear is there will be 3 or 4 theatres, one to the east, one to the west, north, or the maritime. So those theatre commander, that particular theatre where the action is going to happen, will be given this op instruction. Theatre commander will have his joint operation center. That is where he's got the Army, Navy, Air Force with him. And there the scenario, strategy and the op orders will be written. That okay, this is what the orders from top have come. What are the existing scenarios? What are the strategies? How are these strategies to be modified to a modified scenario which has happened? And finally, how will the tactical employment of the forces will be done? Because the entire thing will be done by the theatre commander. And he will issue the mission objective and the op order to the GOC&C, FOC&C and AOC&C, which will be in his command. The war fighting per se will be actually the duty of the three commanders, that is Army commander, FOC&C and the... Now theatre commander will require an external support. He will require the intelligence sharing, resource allocations, everything he'll require from outside, because he cannot hold full resources which he requires for an operation. They will come from outside, like NSCS, Joint Intelligence, MHA, MEA briefs, all this will come to him, which will be coming to him on a daily basis also. Yes. But for this particular operation, local civil military liaison, because you'll be involved for ground movement in the civil area, maybe flying in the civil area, waters will be used, NTRO, RAW, ARC input, ISRO, DRDO, civil aviation, resource allocations from other theatres, because you require some aeroplanes, some things from the other theatres, acquisition, some emergency powers will be required. All this will be an external support which the theatre commander will require. Finally, he'll have his tactical situation room, where entire joint intelligence, ISCCS, MDA pictures, air defense cover, a sort of an Iron Dome picture, the BMD status, nuclear readiness, military status, be it air assets, fleet positioning, brigade readiness, reconnaissance, US, satellite, airborne, joint operation, logistics, stocking levels, weapon state, everything will be under one particular gamut in this operational room. Now just remember, during hostilities, the directives for the operations will come from the CCS, Raksha Mantri. I'm just summing up the whole thing.
Yes, sir.
Op instructions will go from the Chief of Staff Committee. That means all four chiefs will decide how they will go into. Joint planning and operational orders will be by the theatre commander. The execution of war will be the responsibility of the GOC&C, AOC&C and the FOC&C. And finally, the external support will be MHA, MEA, Int Agency, resource allocation and the allocation wing. These will be the major players during hostilities.
Yes, sir. Last question, sir. What are the roles and objectives of the Indian Air Force in a national security apparatus?
The Indian Air Force.
Yes, sir.
I spoke about the national objective and military objective and so on. Let's get on to what are the objectives of Indian Air Force in this whole game.
Yes, sir.
The Indian Air Force's objectives will be ensure defense of national airspace, achieve the desired national objective,
yes,
which has been spelled out, prevent war through credible deterrence. I mean, if you have aeroplanes flying in the air, weaponized, obviously you will keep the other enemy aeroplanes out, hostilities out.
Yes.
So you're going to prevent that. HADR, aid to civil power, international peacekeeping, everything is objective of Indian Air Force. Promote regional, global peace and international stability. This is one of the objectives given to them. Finally, Atmanirbhar Bharat in the aerospace through indigenization.
Yes.
Now, all this has been spelled out in the new IAF doctrine, which is available on the net, 2022. And the doctrine talks about this, the objective of IAF, and it's known as IAP 2000-22. In this, the capability of the air arm, what is the capability? The reach is very important. You should be able to reach wherever required for this operation. Flexibility and versatility. You've gone for a particular mission, but suddenly required for another mission, you need not come back. You should have the flexibility of going on to that. That kind of versatility the Air Force should have. Mobility and responsiveness. You are mobile. Something is happening in the Eastern Theatre and something happens in the Western Theatre. If you go to move your assets from East to West, you should be able to do that. And quick response.
Yes.
Offensive lethality. You should have such kind of lethality in you that it actually gives you an effective trans-domain op capability. You are operating on land, you suddenly go into sea, you suddenly go into mountains. These are the capability of air arm. Now, we spoke about peacetime and wartime and no peace, no war. So we'll go into that. For peacetime, we have operational readiness platform. There are aeroplanes which are always ready to take off if something comes in sight. You have combat air patrols. Some areas which are very, very fragile, You have aeroplanes flying over them. A pilot is sitting in an aircraft every day, I'll say 24/7 in a cockpit, close to the cockpit to take off within 5 minutes.
Yes.
If you see something coming inside and he has to take off within 5 minutes, he go. Then you have surface to air guided weapons also. If anything is coming in, you can use your S-400, you can use your Akash, you can use any Spider. These are the missiles which are available. So many other missiles which are available with Indian air defense. So surface to air guided missile weapons will be used. Then you have deterrence, 24/7 defense cover.
Yes.
24/7 your borders are actually got radars on, and radars have weapons behind.
Yes, sir.
And anybody coming in which you don't want him to be inside that will be cautioned or taken down. Then you also have your nuclear air vectors. So
Explain that a bit, sir. Nuclear air vector.
Okay, see, India is one of the few countries which can drop nuclear from ground, which can drop nuclear from the air, and which can also drop nuclear from the sea.
Yes, sir.
It's known as a triad. So the air nuclear vector is what the Indian Air Force will have. That means the aeroplanes carry the new nuclear weapons. So
yes,
that's a deterrence. We are using it as a deterrence forever. Though we don't have a first use nuclear, only if somebody uses nuclear on us, and as per the situation, the leadership will decide at that moment.
Yes.
But that's a deterrence which you have. Then you have air diplomacy, UN peacekeeping, HADR, evacuation of Indians, international exercises, out of area contingencies, nation building, aid to civil powers, sustaining military powers. So we have these kind of peace air strategy which we go to peacetime. Now comes up the wartime.
Yes.
Wartime strategy is command and control of the air operations. Entire command and control of the air operations with the Air Force. Airspace surveillance and control is done by us. Air battle management is with us. The entire air communication is with us. Control of air. We have 3 types of control of air: supremacy, air superiority, and favorable air situation. Air supremacy means nobody else is there in the air. We are supreme. So we can do what we want to do from the air. Those kind of situations will not happen in our scenario in India.
Yes, sir.
Then you have air superiority. Okay, for this particular, we are superior to you, to the enemy in air at this particular portion. Even that is debatable. I will now talk about coordinated air operations. Army is fighting war, Navy is fighting war. Both require an air support to come in. So we do air-land operations.
Yes, sir.
And we also do maritime air operations. In airland operations, we do air interdiction. That means we've gone inside with the army and dropped them inside to help the army paratroopers to go in and take their action.
Yes.
Second is airstrike, battle airstrike. That means army is wanting us to do a strike ahead of them into the enemy territory through the air.
To
block the logistics support,
yes,
to break the bridges, to do whatever, that the army decides.
Yes, sir.
And army has attack helicopters, and Air Force has attack helicopters and the capability of doing that particular kind of a thing, which happened in 71 and elsewhere. Then goes maritime air operations. These anti-shipping strikes. Navy also has aircraft carriers, but we just have about 1 or 2 aircraft carrier. Why I'm saying 1 or 2? Because one will always be on servicing and one is in the waters.
Yes,
7,500 kilometers of coastal and such a vast 3 seas around you,
yes,
with Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea. So Navy will require some air capability to come in to destroy ships along with that, and then coastal strikes. So to go and do the coastal strike from where the enemy ships are coming in. So these kind of assistance the Air Force does for the Army and the Navy. Now, there are a lot of enabling operations. You have air mobility operations,
yes,
wherein you can do para-drop, you can do load drop, you can do weapons drop, you can do towing of the guns and so on. Now you have tow guns.
Yes, sir.
So all this the Air Force has to do. This is enabling an operation which is going on, though they're not effectively into war, but they're enabling operations. Then you have intelligence and surveillance reconnaissance. After intelligence, you now require aeroplanes which can control the entire air movement and also monitor the communication and the other spectrums which are there in the air. So you have AWACS, which actually controls the warfare from high above. Basically, you're carrying the radars up there. Radar has a particular range. Depending on the terrain and the capability of the radar, it could show 60 kilometers inside, 100 kilometers, 400. But if as you keep taking the radar upwards, you will find the visibility of the radar increases.
Yes.
Now imagine putting a radar on an aircraft and it has gone up. The AWACS which are now looking around.
Yes, sir.
So they also have control rooms which can control the aeroplanes, your own airplanes, to do whatever action.
So these are the early warning
aircraft. And then you have an AEW aircraft where the entire electromagnetic spectrum is being controlled through these aeroplanes. Air-to-air refuelers.
Yes, sir.
Earlier the fighters could fly only for 40 minutes, 50 minutes operation, 1 hour operation. Now the fighters can remain airborne as long as the pilot is capable.
Yes, sir.
Today we've flown fighters for almost 6 to 8 hours, single hop operations. That is capable because of your air-to-air refuelers. This particular enabler actually helps you to write a bigger war plan. Yes, you don't have to come back, waste time, refuel and then go. Then you have an entire electronic warfare spectrum which is happening around. These are the force multipliers which the Air Force has to go through. Then you have a face of nation. Our aeroplanes have done so much. In 1947, October 47, August, we got independence. By October 47, the Pakistanis had moved into Kashmir. Now these days are aware of it.
Yes, sir.
If the Dakotas, for the first time, had not gone and landed in Srinagar with one Sikh regiment,
yes, sir,
we would have lost Kashmir.
Yes, sir.
And today we proudly say Kashmir se Kanyakumari tak Bharat ek hai. Maybe we would have saying Pathankot se Kanyakumari tak Bharat ek hai. Because Kashmir would have gone.
Yes, sir.
But the Air Force helped save that along with the army.
Yes, sir.
Earthquake and South Africa, cheetahs to be brought in. You're talking about Wuhan virus.
Yes, sir.
Everybody in the month of February 2020, India went into lockdown in March 2020. February 2020, the whole world was scared.
Yes, sir.
We were seeing videos where Chinese were falling off in Wuhan, actually walking on the street and dying.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the Indian Air Force went all the way with their aeroplane to Wuhan?
Yes, sir.
Picked up Indian and other nationals,
yes,
and brought them back. Whole lot of them, the entire crew was in PPE kit and came back. Once they came back, they were sanitized for 14 days. Our aeroplane went again somewhere else. Another crew got sanitized for quarantine for 14 days. So you can imagine how our Air Force has been functioning all through. We look after all the earthquakes of the world, whether it's in Nepal or anywhere. The Air Force goes everywhere today because we have that reach, we have that capability. We have flown during the second wave, we flew so many million miles that we could have gone across the globe 55 times to move our oxygen cylinders, oxygen and everything all over to save our Indians. We flew down to Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, Dubai, France, Germany, UK during the second wave. We have been bringing back our citizens wherever the war zone is. Like Ukraine, we flew 3,000. Afghanistan, we flew people back. 1,17,000 people were flown back during Gulf War.
Yes, sir.
From those countries. We have gone and helped Maldives during Cactus operation when they were 88 when they had a coup. We have, Maldives, the water had finished.
Yes, sir.
So our aeroplanes took water from them. Our naval ships went and gave them a lot of water till the time they could lift their head up. Hurricane Katrina, USA, we've gone. Earthquake, Nepal, Sri Lanka. The latest mission which we've done is in Sudan, where we got a window for about 90 minutes. We landed there on an airfield, away in the war zone with no lights, nothing on the airfield, and with night vision goggles, a Hercules landed there and evacuated 121 Indians and came back. So these, with our own Garuds, the Air Force went there. So these are the kind of operations which the Air Force has been doing.
Yes,
and let me tell you, we are one of the few countries who have, after a war, created another nation.
Yes, sir.
In 1971, when we did 800 paratroopers out of 50 aeroplanes we dropped inside, which helped Army achieve its mission. And finally, a MiG-21.
You're talking about the
Tangale airdrop.
Yes.
And 1971, in the governor's house, when the MiG, I still remember, C779 was a number,
yes, sir,
which dropped the bomb right into the governor's house, which actually broke the back base, and the Pakistan surrendered, and we created another nation. That is what your Indian Air Force is.
And on that note, let's end today's session. Thank you, Air Marshal Sachdeva, for enlightening us on Indian Air Force's role in national security.
Thank you.